I was over at Earthworks as a ministry for a few years, and a call came from our provincial, and she said that Bishop Milchek in Gary was looking for some sisters uh, to do some kind of ministry. We tried to case out what were the needs in Gary if they wanted us to open up some kind of a ministry. And one day, Sister Francisca said to me, "What kind of a ministry do you see in Gary?" And right out of my mouth popped, "I see the need for an outreach program for women and children." And so that kind of was out in the air from there on. We started, then Sister Kathleen came into the picture, and we started to have some meetings about, how are we going to do a ministry like that.
At this time, one thing she saw was the fact that there were women who were on the bridge of being homeless. And she saw many agencies within the city of Gary that could assist them, but the persons did not know how to contact them or which way to go.
We first thought we might be a place where the women stayed at night. Then we found out, no, that wasn't our biggest gift. Our biggest gift was more doing triage, trying to find out what they needed, what the individual needed, and then the resources to connect them with.
And I remember very clearly one evening we were meeting, and Sister Kathleen came with a book, and it was woodcuts, pictures of woodcuts. And she opened up the book and to the page where there was a woodcut of Sojourner Truth. And she was suggesting that that would be a good name for our outreach ministry. So that's how the name of the program came about. At night, looking at those pictures, and decided that Sojourner Truth would be a really good name for the program.
We recognized very definitely there were advantages with the many agencies that could assist us, and we wanted to take advantage of that. We also recognized that there are many professional Black women who have their degrees in social services, their degrees in alcohol and drug addiction, who also could help us. And we wanted to make use of their wonderful professional gifts to assist us with the women and children.
So we started to scout around where on earth would we start a program like this. I mean, where are we going to put it? Eventually, we heard about Holy Trinity, and that might be a possibility.
And I was told by my advisor to go out and see Father Bob Gehring, who at the time was stationed at St. Mark's here in Gary. So I did.
There was a stairs that came from the basement up, and there was a woman coming up the steps that had beautiful red hair.
Down the steps bops this little tiny Sister Joan Fisher, poor handmaid.
And I wondered who she was. And we began to have a conversation.
Joan is fearless, so she didn't know me from Eve, but she said, well, why don't we keep in touch?
Who it turned out to be Sister Peg Spindler, who now is the director of Sojourner Truth. And she was looking for a place for ministry.
I had taught in Gary for 15 years, and I had a similar dream of coming back to Gary somehow, some way, to give back to the community that I was born in and taught for so many years in.
Eventually, we were starting to think we had to do something about this rectory, which was not in very good shape. And the diocese was a little bit embarrassed about it, so they offered to come in and do one coat of paint on it. But it really didn't cover a lot that needed to be done. So we got busy and eventually had to paint the floors and whatever it is, and eventually we did move in.
We began to, Joan had already been meeting with people in different places or apartments and so on, so we started bringing some of those women into the house. and their little babies would leave their finger marks on this coffee table we have in the living room. It's still there, and they'd leave their little fingerprints around. And we finally realized this was getting on people's nerves, and we didn't have the space. More people were interested. We started computer classes in the basement of the house with someone that I knew from Holy Trinity days when I taught here, and we realized we needed more space.
That hall had been empty for a long, long time, and the basement flooded.
Joan and I were trying to plan how we would ask the Poor Handmaid leadership, could we somehow get the building next door, which is the building we're sitting in right now. Well, we didn't have to. Sister Jolise and company came to see what we were doing, walked through the house, and said, without us asking at all, you all need more space. Ha! Perfect. So, long story short again, the Poor Handmaids bought this place as it was. I don't know if it was $50 or $100 or what it was, but there were holes in the roof and moldy carpeting downstairs, pipes had burst. It was awful. So we had just finished cleaning up the house. Now we set to clean up this place.
To get the hall completed about 2 years. That wasn't done and completed till about 1999.
We saw the need for something larger, and we tackled the hall and really tackled it. It demanded a lot of elbow grease, many people helping. And I mean, I'm amazed at seeing how little by little it took shape that it has now and how it has improved over and over again over the years, thanks to especially the help of wonderful volunteers. But it has been so gratifying to see the growth there and the many people, the many hands. It just wasn't us, many people who contributed to what it is today, to make it what it is today.
Now, this is 17 years later, we've grown from, I've seen numbers like 200 or 800 for the first few years, people we served, okay, to now we're serving over 2,100 people on average per month. We started with myself and Joan, then we got a maintenance person, then we hired our first social worker because we realized neither of us were social workers, so we needed to have that expertise on board. So we hired our first social worker, then we hired, as time went on, staff grew a little bit, and we built a case management office in here. We found corners that we could use for different spaces and uses. We took the garage that was out there and made that into the food pantry and clothes closet.
They needed somebody to take care of the clothes closet and the food pantry. So that's what I did full time. At that time we had one room for the clothes, which was an old garage. It had been cleaned up. And we had one small room for the pantry and a little closet for the personal care items. There are people who, especially the homeless, who don't have any place to wash their clothes. They don't have any money to buy clothes, so to get a few outfits is a real gift to them.
In the early 2000s, the old church, the St. Michael's Byzantine Church, was torn down. The city helped us tear it down, and then we added on to the garage, so now we have our present food pantry and clothes closet. We bought dividers for this room so that we can handle the large flow of community clients for food pantry and clothes closet services. And now, in the last year, I've hired a director of operations because now we're going to be working with a developer to build permanent supportive housing for many of our clients who suffer with mental illness or addiction and have families or are individuals. I never dreamed that I'd be a director of this place. I just wanted to help out. I never dreamed that it would get this big, that we would have a $1.5 million budget, that I'd be part of building permanent supportive housing. Never dreamed any of that stuff. But that's where the Spirit takes you and gives you the grace to get there. So, and all the wonderful people that have been part of it over the years is, I don't know, amazing. Amazing.